Hey, good morning. If you're joining me on Monday morning, it is 6 a.m. Eastern, and I'm excited to be able to share this content with you. And if you're not joining me on Monday mornings, well, I encourage you to subscribe. I come out with these videos every Monday morning at 6 a.m. Eastern, and what better way to start your week than with moi? All right, enough of that. So in this video, what we're going to talk about are what I believe to be the most valuable professional quality and the most valuable professional skill. Now, and also kind of the way that I view quality and skill. So think of a quality as something that's a personal characteristic. It's a personal quality. It's a way of being. But then a skill is something that you learn how to either use or do. And usually skills, think of a quality as the foundation of your being, of who you are. Skills go on top of that. So most people jump the gun and they try to learn skills without mastering a foundation. The foundation must always come first. The qualities, who you are as a person, how you operate, your habits, your mental state, your energy, all that stuff must come first. So a lot of people find themselves in their career where they're either not making as much money as they want, or they hit a career plateau and they're not being challenged, they're not growing. Or maybe they went to go negotiate for a promotion or for a raise or a bonus or some other opportunity to lead a new client or customer engagement or a different team, and they're passed over. Or maybe, God forbid, the company's downsizing, they're shedding overhead and they're trying to reduce operating costs. Well, then they need to figure out who within the company can be laid off. Who can we get rid of without blowing up the company? The people who are viewed as expendable and replaceable, those are the people that get cut first or fired. So what we want to talk about in this video is what is a professional quality and a professional skill that no matter what, if you master them, you will become technically irreplaceable, because the value that you will bring the company and the team is so immense that when a manager or the company needs to decide, all right, if we have a group of 10 or 15 people and they know you have this quality and skill, and the other 14 don't, or the other 9 don't, you are not going to be the one cut. So in this video, we're going to dive in to the quality, the skill, and we're going to talk about at the end how you can start to build this week, how you can begin to build these two, the quality and the skill. All right, so the first part of self-leadership that I want to talk about is clarity. Now, I view two different ways of clarity. There's clarity at the macro level, and then there's micro clarity. And let's start with macro clarity. So I'll start with a question by saying, how are we as human beings different from every other animal on the planet? Well, we've been given the godlike power of thinking. There's no other animal that can think, project the future, imagine the future, envision the future. And then once they see the future, they then start to process, okay, how can I do that? And then they actually go about build it. So we have the godlike ability of thinking, of imagining a better future for ourselves, our families, our communities, our company, whoever. We can imagine the future and then build it. But if we don't take advantage of that, we're no better than a farm animal, than any other animal on the planet. And think of a sheep. If you're a part of a herd, you don't think for yourself. You just go wherever everyone else goes. And the other thing is that if you're a farm animal or some other animal, there's boundaries. You've allowed someone else to tell you what are your boundaries, what are you capable of, what are your limits. And so the first part, macro clarity, is we need to know, where am I going with my life? What do I envision for my life and career? What do I want? What do I imagine? And then I'm going to figure out how to build it. And you must have clarity in that vision. So then the second part is micro clarity. And I like to think of micro clarity as being able to say no. A lot of people allow stuff pop up and they can't actually sit and focus for a half an hour to an hour totally undisturbed. For some people, they can't even remember the last time they actually turned their phone off. And I promise you, it's almost like a superpower. When you turn off your phone, no one distracts you. Or if you're able to block out email for a short period of time, no one distracts you. And it's almost like an amplifier. It's a superpower when you can sit for a half an hour to an hour to 2 hours, totally undisturbed, 100% clarity in what you need to be focusing on, and you do it. So macro and micro clarity are the first part of self-leadership. All right, so now the second important part of self-leadership is courage. And there's a quote that I love. It's from Tony Robbins. And the way that he described courage is, courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means that you're afraid, but you do it anyways. And I think the way that we can think about courage is there's 4 different parts that are absolutely necessary for courage. And the first part is we need to actually believe in ourselves. And the second part is we need to think for ourselves. The third part, we need to speak for ourselves. And the fourth part is we need to actually take action based on our beliefs, our thoughts, and what it is that we said or what it is that we believe is a good idea. So a lot of people, they rely on other people for approval. And when they think about success, well, success to them means that other people approve of everything that I do. If we lock that in as success, well, we are now entirely dependent on other people for the rest of our life. We cannot do this because what will so-and-so think? Or we can't say this because what will so-and-so think? Or I cannot believe this or think this because it disagrees with what these other people think. We've trapped ourselves when we forget this strength of courage, of believing and acting on what we believe is best, what we intuitively came up with as a good idea, and then pursue that. So one thing that I want to leave you with on courage is accept the challenge and reject doubt. Accept the courage, reject doubt, accept the challenge and reject doubt. We will always have self-doubt in everything that we do, but the difference between someone who's courageous and someone who lives out of fear is, am I willing to accept the challenge regardless, even though I'm afraid of what's going to happen, and I'm going to choose to reject doubt. All right, now a third important part of self-leadership is discipline. Now, this is something that I know everybody struggles with. It's a constant battle, and you'll never have 100% discipline. And that's because we have mental fatigue. And, a simple example is, if you've ever gone on a workout routine or a diet or tried to do something, you were always great in the morning and the afternoon, and then all of a sudden at night, something falls apart. Discipline it requires energy. If you're not sleeping, if you're not eating properly, if you're not doing anything to keep your energy levels high, discipline breaks down. Now, the other important part of discipline is that discipline starts at home. You build it in your personal life and you bring it to the workplace. A lot of people, and I'm sure that you know people, or maybe even sometimes yourself, but there's people at work that miss deadlines. They push things off. They keep procrastinating. They say they'll get around to something, but it takes too long. People who are not disciplined in the workplace are absolutely, in probably many parts of their personal life, not disciplined in their personal life. So when we want to build discipline, it's not something that starts at work. We need to look at our personal lives, build discipline in our personal lives, and then we take it to work. Discipline starts as a decision, and then it's a decision that, all right, today I'm going to do this. And I don't want to do it, but I'm going to force myself to do it. And then tomorrow, I'm going to do it again. And the next day, I'm going to choose and force myself and decide to do it again. Now, it starts a decision, but eventually we can condition ourselves to make it become a conditioned habit. Now, a habit is nothing more than there's a trigger, there's action, and then there's a result. Trigger, action, result. Trigger, action, result. And so when we choose to do discipline over and over and over and over and over again, the first 2 weeks, I promise you, are always the hardest when you're trying to change a habit. After 2 weeks, it does get easier. Starts a decision, we make it turn into a habit. All right, now the fourth important part of self-leadership I want to share is faith. Now, the reason faith is so important is because it's so rare. Very few people have faith in themselves, in their professional work, in their decisions. And the way that I like to think of faith is, you know what you want. You see the future. You can imagine it. You believe in it. And then you act based on those beliefs, even though you're not 100% sure how it's going to happen. Most people stop. They limit their lives because they don't know how. And they stop at how. They keep asking themselves, how? We're never going to have all of the information in the world. We're never going to know every single step to achieving the goal. So most people, they know what they want, or maybe they don't, but either way, they stop because they're thinking too much. And when they think, they're like, well, I don't know how I'm going to do that, so I'm not going to start. They don't have faith in themselves that I'm going to start taking action now. I'll figure it out. I believe in myself enough to know that I will figure it out eventually. Now, one of the quotes that I love is LeBron James. And LeBron, very similar mindset to Michael Jordan and many of the other top athletes, but one of the quotes I love that he shared, and I'm paraphrasing here, is, I always keep a vision of where I'm headed, but I trust that if I put in the work, my work will take me there. That is his way of expressing that he has faith that if I do what I need to do today consistently, that will take me to where I ultimately want to be. And he has faith that the work will take him there. And courage and faith go hand in hand together. Courage without faith will never last, because if you have courage and you start taking action on something, think of courage as the ignition. But if you have the courage to start something, but you don't have faith, it doesn't last. You end up giving up. You choose to give up because you don't believe enough in yourself or in the journey, or that you'll eventually figure it out. All right, now the fifth important part of self-leadership is being reflective. Now, the way that I like to describe being reflective means that when there's a failure or when there's a bad outcome, you view it as it's separate from me. It's not me, it is a separate it. So we view it objectively. Now, a lot of people, when they make a failure or something bad happens, they perceive that as, I'm a failure, I suck, I'm horrible, I'm not worthy, I doubt myself. And then they literally just pummel and beat themselves up for weeks, months, years, or indefinitely. And so instead, the way that we want to be reflective as a leader is something bad happens, and think of it kind of like the scientific method, where how as a human species, how do we keep advancing technology, medicine, science, astronomy, all these different things? Well, we form a hypothesis, we take action on something, there's a result. Now, it may not be the result that we want, but nonetheless, it's a result. We study the result, we learn from it, and we ask questions. All right, why did this happen? What can I learn from it? And then how can I make sure that this result doesn't happen again in the future? How can I advance and improve myself, the experiment, whatever? So being reflective means that you are separate from the outcome. It doesn't define you. You are not a failure. It's the thing, the action was a failure. You learn from it, and then you continuously improve yourself going forward. All right, so now a sixth very important part, and I would say that this one's definitely up there with one of the most important of self-leadership, is internal motivation. We do not rely on other people to motivate us. So there's external and internal. External motivation is, think of it, growing up playing sports, maybe you had a coach screaming out at you, run another lap, do this, do that. Or you had a professor or a teacher saying, this is a deadline, you need to get this done by this time. Or you have a manager, here's a deadline, get this done by this time. Or you have a parent or a coach or someone else is constantly telling you what to do, how to do it, when to do it, where to do it, with whom to do it, whatever. When we are internally motivated, we don't need anyone else to tell us how to run our lives. We run ourselves. We set our own goals. We motivate ourselves. We are self-disciplined. We take action on what we know is important and what we need to do for ourselves. And we get ourselves to do it every single day. Now, internal motivation, when you know your goals, they're ambitious, they're exciting. What it does is it builds energy within you. And it makes you just amplified and you want to go get it. And when you have that energy, human beings, we have mirror neurons in the front part of our brain. And those mirror neurons are partially what help us have empathy, compassion, sympathy, to understand other people's emotions, and they work constantly, and they're contagious, and they affect other people. So if you've ever had it where you walk into the office and you just smile for no reason, and the other person sees it, what do? They normally smile back. Or when someone starts laughing, all of a sudden someone else wants to start laughing. Energy works the same. And when you're the person that motivates yourself, you don't need other people to make you feel good. You get yourself to feel good, and then you go in and you infect everybody with positive energy. You become irreplaceable, because who doesn't want that person around? All right, now the seventh part of self-leadership is demanding of ourselves peak mental and physical performance. A lot of people, they don't structure their lives in a way where they have a morning routine, evening routine, or they haven't thought about their diet or fitness or their sleep, or how are they taking care of things that have been really bugging them mentally. And by not taking care of these core personal parts of ourselves, we cannot consistently hit 90 to 100% a day in terms of peak energy for our personal lives and our professional careers. So a self-leader, we think of it as it is an absolute requirement that I'm going to take care of myself, and I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure that I feel incredible daily. And I'm asking and demanding of myself 90 to 100% peak performance. Now, most people literally live their lives in either slow or middle lane. I mean, they're operating at 30 to 60% continually. Imagine if you were to live your life not at 60%, but at 90 to 100% every single day, or every day that you want to turn on and get stuff done. So, seventh part of a self-leader is we demand of ourselves peak performance both physically and mentally. Now, the eighth and final part of self-leadership that I want to share with you is emotional mastery. And the way that we can think of emotional mastery is we choose how we respond to something that happens. We choose our emotions and our emotional response. Most people go throughout their lives believing that emotions are just a natural byproduct of something. Like something happens, oh, well, naturally I'm going to feel this way. No, emotions are the result of our interpretation or our thoughts about something. So when we just don't think about something or we don't control our emotions, what that means is there's going to be some sort of external event or something happens or someone says something or something comes into contact with us, and then if we don't have any control over our emotions, we just naturally react instinctively to whatever that is. Maybe we yell, maybe we cry, maybe we get defensive, maybe we get really upset. And the question that we need to ask ourselves is, okay, I can feel myself wanting to do this. I need to stop, catch that, and say, if I respond in that way, is it going to serve me? And oftentimes it's not going to. So what we need to do is catch ourselves in that moment and say, okay, that happened. I want to respond like this. Is that going to serve me? If not, how will I best respond? How will I choose to feel? How will I think about this situation or event in a way that will serve me so that I will be better off in the future? Very few people have control over their emotions. And I'll give you a simple example. Let's say that someone loses $100,000. Now that person who loses $100,000, they have two different ways of looking at it, or an infinite number, but two different ways I'll start with is one is I'm devastated, I'm ruined, I've lost everything. Well, if someone has that emotional, that mental response to the situation, you can imagine emotionally how that person's going to feel going forward and the actions that person's going to take going forward. For that person, it's going to be a downward spiral. It's not going to help them in any way, shape, or form. But if that person loses everything and instead says, oh man, this really sucks. Okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to come back better, stronger, and I'm going to be even better off in the future going forward. Now, as simple as that sounds, and I know that's a very ridiculous, simple example, but that really is the difference between people who do incredible things in their life and bounce back from failure or from negative feedback or from rejection or humiliation or failure. Those people think about it and emotionally respond to those events differently. And because they respond differently to those events, they think differently and they act differently. If someone's sad and depressed and lonely and just drowning in self-doubt, the energy is not going to be there because that emotion is such a toxic, negative emotion. But if that person thinks about it differently, chooses to actively think about it differently, controls their emotions, the actions they take and their future will be very, very different than the other person. Now, to summarize with the self-leadership, I know we covered a lot, but the reason it's so valuable is self-leadership is the very first thing that we need to start with, and only after we master self-leadership will we ever be given the opportunity to lead other people. If we can't manage ourselves, we're never going to be given the opportunity to manage other people or to lead other people. And a simple example is think financially. If someone can't manage $10,000, why would anyone on earth ever give them the opportunity to manage 10 million or 10 billion? They won't, because they can't manage 10,000. Why would we ever give them more? And it's the exact same way in the professional workplace. If we can't manage and master our own personal lives and our own careers, we'll never be given or attract the opportunities because the managers or other leaders above us, they won't see us as the person that we need to continue investing in that person, and that person is going to become a leader. And that leads to one other important point is companies are willing to train and invest in people in terms of skills and knowledge, but very, very rarely will a company be willing to invest in over the long term and train and rebuild someone's personality or core qualities. And that's what they look for when they're thinking about recruiting or moving someone up. They realize or look for who are the people who already have those personal qualities and traits, and we're going to hire them. We can train them, but we can't rebuild a personality. That's work that only we can do and only us will do. Companies simply won't do it. That's why it's so valuable in the marketplace. It's so rare. All right, so I know we've spent a lot of time talking about self-leadership, which is the professional quality that I believe is most valuable in the marketplace, and we haven't talked at all about the professional skill. Now, the reason for that, again, is the foundation must come first. Your self-leadership must come first before we ever try to put a skill on top of that. Because a skill without any discipline or faith or courage or any of the other parts of the self-leadership, it's worthless. It falls apart. So in terms of what I believe the most valuable professional skill in the marketplace is influence. And the reason influence, I believe, is the most valuable is that's the only way to actually bring an idea to life. It's the only way to inspire, to motivate, to influence, negotiate, to get other people to actually do things or take action. And if we cannot get an idea to the marketplace, and one of the things is, I believe creativity is the second most valuable personal quality, is being able to think of problem solving, critical thinking, new ideas, new approaches, new processes. Well, all of those ideas have to be implemented. And the only way to actually create value is to take action and have it get done. Well, we cannot do everything ourselves. A leader cannot run a company by his or herself. Instead, that leader needs to be able to influence other people to implement and get the work done and create the value. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's great and all. So how do I go about learning how to influence people? Well, we're not going to dive into that. That can be a separate video. But in this video, what I do want to talk about is the first step of being able to influence people. And it's building trust, being a respected and trustworthy and honest person. When you have that rapport with other people, we can only influence from a place of trust and respect and rapport with someone. If they don't trust us, if they think that we're lying or you're lying or that you're someone who constantly takes advantage of people, they'll never trust anything that you say. And if they don't believe what you're saying, you'll never be able to influence them because they won't trust anything that you're saying. So the very first thing that we can do is going back to the most valuable professional quality, which is self-leadership. When you become a person that is trustworthy and is honest and is well respected by the people that you interact with, they will begin to listen to you. And all of a sudden, when they begin to listen to you, the words that you say start influencing them. Now, another reason why influence is so valuable is because it's so rare in the marketplace. Very few people are able to strongly influence other people. And the reason is that so many people are locked in their own lives and their own thoughts and their own perspectives and their own emotions that they're not willing to take a step out of themselves and think from someone else's perspective. And they're not willing to take the time, the energy, the effort to ask the questions that are required to understand someone's needs, their wants, their desires, their fears, their hopes, their beliefs, their thoughts. Like, if you don't understand the other person, their perspective, how they're feeling, you'll never be able to influence that person in a way that's lasting. And the final part about influence is some people are worried about, manipulating people. Manipulation means to change. Well, you can manipulate someone in a really good way or manipulate someone in a really bad way. Let's say you have a friend or a family member who's sick and won't go see the doctor. I hope you manipulate that family member or friend to go see the doctor because they need help. Well, very similarly, influence is a skill. It's not power. Influence is different than power. Power is a resource. For example, your manager or a leader above you, they might have position power where they say, do this, and if you don't, you're fired. Well, there's two things there. One, there's position power, but then they also have leverage, which is also a resource. So influence is very different than power. And because influence is a skill, how we use that skill is very dependent on our morals and our ethics. We can use influence in very powerful and very beneficial ways to serve other people and to serve ourselves in order to build a better future, a better career, a better company. Now, the first action that I recommend for you this week, the first step, is start to build self-discipline. And it can be done in a very easy way in your personal life. And as you build it in your personal life, it will start to be built also in your professional life. Now, there's a quote that I absolutely love from Tony Robbins where he says that you need to turn your shoulds into musts. So anytime you catch yourself saying, I should do this, I should do that, I'll do it later. If it's a should, you do it. It should be a must. And the way that we can start to build this in our personal lives in an easy level is arguably the two hardest things that most people struggle with. 1, get up after the first alarm. 2, right after your alarm, put on a pair of gym shorts and do something active. Even if that means going for a 10-minute walk. I always, when I work with someone, the very first thing that we talk about is personal performance, reaching that personal performance. Well, you got to move in the morning. You need to do something to wake your body up and wake your mind up. So for you, step one this week is start to wake up after the first alarm, force yourself to do that. And then the second thing is right after that alarm goes off, move your body. Maybe that's a workout, maybe it's a jog, a run, something. It might even be just a 10-minute walk, but move the body. All right, now the second action step for you this week is start to think for yourself. Now, the best way that we can start to practice this and condition this into ourselves is have a journal with you at all times. So especially if you're working, I know that everything's digital right now. So if you have a journal next to you at all times, whenever you have a meeting or you're talking to somebody and someone tells you what to do or what to believe or projects their thoughts or ideas onto you, well, most people instinctively, they've built the habit of, oh, okay, got it. All right, I'll do that. And then they don't even they don't separate themselves to start to think, do I believe that's a good idea? Do I believe that that's the best way it could be done? So what you're going to do is have a journal, and anytime that someone tells you to do something or what to believe or what's the best idea or what we're going to run with, jot in your journal what were their beliefs or thoughts or ideas. So put their ideas down, but then stop and ask yourself and say, what do I believe? What are my thoughts? And then take a step back and think for a second, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but really consider, what do I believe to be the best idea? And then write that down in your journal and start to do that for the entire week anytime you have a meeting with other people. All right, and now for the third and arguably the most difficult part or action step that I would recommend for you this week is number 3, which is share your thoughts. Begin to share your thoughts even when it's difficult and uncomfortable. Now, there's a quote that I absolutely love. It's by Henry David Thoreau, and it comes from Walden. But he said, most men lead lives of quiet desperation. And when I think about that quote, why do most people lead lives of quiet desperation? It's because they don't have conviction in their own thoughts, and they also don't have the courage to share their own thoughts. And the reason that so many people get caught in that trap is because they're so afraid of being negatively judged or rejected or told no or viewed as a failure by other people. But oftentimes people, they doubt the validity, the value of their own ideas. Oftentimes you have incredible ideas, but if you don't share them because you don't believe in them or you're afraid that you might look stupid, well, then there's no value in the idea overall. You might as well have not even had the idea. So what we want to do is you're going to have that journal and you're going to be writing down your thoughts. Now for the next week, anytime that you have a thought that you believe is valuable for the team or would be a really good consideration for your manager or for the leader or for the team that you're working with, schedule a one-on-one with someone, whoever that person needs to be. Schedule that one-on-one. Maybe it's a video chat or a phone call, quick phone call. And when you pull them aside, just say, hey, based on that following meeting or based on this idea, I wanted to share with you several thoughts that I had and get your take on them. And then practice sharing your ideas. Now, the manager or the leader might say, yeah, well, the reason is, and then the first benefit comes out. They're going to explain why it is that they said what they said. So the first benefit is you actually learn from them further explaining why they told you what to do or why they actually, believe this or think this or why they believe it's the best strategy. You learn. But then the second benefit is when you share your idea, you're going to get feedback on it. They're going to pick holes in it. They're going to play devil's advocate. When they start poking holes in it, you learn even more. Now, if they don't start poking holes in it, well, then the third possibility is maybe it really is an awesome idea and maybe they'll run with it. And then all of a sudden, when they see that you're starting to contribute very valuable ideas, they begin to respect you more. They begin to trust you more. And they start to believe that you're worthy of investing more resources and more opportunities into, which is going to grow your career. The people who grow and become extremely valuable in the marketplace are the people who share their thoughts and ideas, and they're not afraid to get rejected. They're not afraid to be told this is wrong or that's wrong, and here's why. They keep learning from those ideas. Now, I know this was a little bit longer of a video, but I hope you still found it very worth your time. So again, action steps for you this week, or what I'd recommend, is threefold. So 1, begin to focus on building self-discipline. Wake up after your first alarm and move your body after that alarm. Secondly is begin to think for yourself. So keep that journal, record other people's thoughts and their reasons, and then take a step back and think for 5 or 10 minutes. What do I think? What do I believe is the best idea? And then third is start to build the courage and actually start sharing your thoughts with that other person. The way that I like to think about courage is a muscle. The more you build it, the heavier weight that you lift, you will absolutely build that muscle. So have an awesome week, and I'll talk to you next Monday. I hope you found this video helpful and well worth your time, and I would encourage you to do 2 things. If you haven't already, click subscribe and click the little bell on YouTube so that you'll be notified when I do send this content out every single week. And again, my mission is to help you advance your life and career, grow professional, and make more money. And I can only do that if I can send you this content. So that's first thing. And then the second thing is, if you have been thinking about making a big life and career change and you're wondering what would that process look like, how would I even begin thinking about that, what would all the different steps be, on my website redstonecoaching.com, I've created a completely free set of videos. So there's 3 videos for free. All you have to do is sign up. And then those 3 videos, I'll walk you through the 3-step process, which is foundation, transition, and acceleration for making a big change in your life and career. And I think that would give you a lot of clarity into what would that look like for me. So thanks so much for your time investment. I hope it was a healthy return on your investment for this video. Keep crushing, keep moving forward. Success equals progress, not outcome. And I'll see you in the next video.